Hey everybody, it's the Jim Masters Show coming to you from New York. Hope you guys are doing well. Thanks so much for joining us. We've got an amazing guest who's joining us. Actually, she's originally from London. She's joining us right now from Los Angeles, and she has an amazing story that she is sharing on a very special person, noted in the music industry and so much more. You may recognize this face. If you don't, you will recognize, of course, the voice. This is John Larkin, fast-living, hard-playing, stuttering jazz pianist who overcame abuse, addiction, ageism, and obscurity to stage one of the most improbable debuts in pop music history by turning his greatest pain into purpose. And he, of course, was a veteran pianist, but he became incredibly popular with his single, Scatman, Ski-Ba-Bop-Ba-Dop-Bop. Let me say that again. Ski-Ba-Bop. He was better at it than me. Ski-Ba-Bop-Ba-Dop-Bop. And that is fantastic. That's why he was the star. He's no longer with us. However, he had, a stutter that was incredible, and incredible in terms of his ability to try to get beyond it, and also to make best of it, because he was abused. He was not treated well when he was younger. And, but he became an international pop star, one of the most unlikely international pop stars in recent memory. And in the 90s, he really took off with that song and so much more. And we have a very, very special guest again, who's joining us from Los Angeles, California, because she has written an extraordinary book. Her name is Gina Waggott, and she's originally, again, from London. And she has penned this extraordinary book, really celebrating not only his life and the remarkable story of the world's unlikeliest pop star, Scatman John, but also her own story, too, because she has battled and worked through covert stuttering as well, and has made the best of it. She also is a brilliant journalist, a writer, author, and journalist. She used to be with the BBC as well. And we're very excited to welcome her to our show, because she's going to share some really poignant moments from the book, some incredible stories as well, and all right here for you on the Jim Masters Show. So we're going to take you out to Los Angeles right now, and we're going to welcome our very special guest, Gina, to the Jim Masters Show. Gina, welcome to the show, my friend. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much, Jim. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm loving your scat singing there, trying to say the title of the song.
Can you say it? Are you able to say it? Nobody can say it like Scatman John.
Nobody can say it. No, every time I hear people attempt to even say the name of the single, it's like, okay, no, I'm not going to.
I mean, I could say skedaddle. That's an easy one, skedaddle, but I know only he could. And what an icon in a short window of time, which was really part of the magic as well. Welcome to the show. You are in Los Angeles right now. Congratulations on this amazing book. I know it's been so well received. And Scatman John is, even not being with us, personally, he had passed. He is still in the hearts and minds and souls. He's got a cult following, and his music is still, it's on the internet, it's on Spotify, it's out there. Tell us about the magic of Scatman John and why this connection you had forged to him. What was it about this particular artist that really resonated with you early on, and to the point of even wanting to pen this incredible book about his remarkable life?
Yeah, the first thing I'd say about Scatman John, especially if you're in the States, you probably don't know what he looks like, but you've almost certainly heard his voice. I should say for your audience, Jim, that I am, as you said in the intro, a person who stutters, and so was John. But even though he was around in the mid-90s, the songs are still going, and like you said, he's like now a popular culture cult figure almost, and has a huge following, especially online. His streams are like over a billion now, I would say. And it's just incredible. But a lot of people have no idea that behind this guy was like the world's most crazy story in pop. And that's what I wanted to dig into with the book. So when sadly, I'm old enough to remember the 90s. So when I first heard this song that he made, and he turned his stuttering into scat singing because he was a jazz artist. And I could tell you the exact piece of road that the car was going on when this thing came out of the car speakers, because he was talking about stuttering in the song. And no one had ever really spoken about stuttering in a positive way in pop music or on TV or on radio. Nowhere. It was like the mid-90s, the media was not the same as it is now. And I was just like, who is this guy? And I just became a huge fan. And I was about 14 and not in a great place with my mental health and self-esteem, mostly due to the stuttering. And I wrote to him, and to my great astonishment, even at the height of his fame, when he was outselling Michael Jackson in Europe, he wrote back. And that's what started the whole process of writing the book.
Wow, he wrote back. That's amazing. What a sweetheart of a guy. And I always heard that he was really a very kind soul, even though he himself went through intense bullying, and people picking fun at him and all these things that, had happened to him in his life. He found a way to break through this highly constraining stutter and broke past even, sometimes when people are dealing with things, addictions and things come in because it sort of numbs it. It sort of maybe calms the mind or whatever. And he also had a lifetime of, childhood sexual abuse, all these things that went on in his life as he was coming up the ranks of life. Amazing and inspiring story. When you learned all of this, you learned the depth of his experience more than just having that unique sound to his voice and that affable personality and the smile and the mustache and the fedora and the whole look and everything that he had, which was unique and stood out. But when you delve into his life, it gave you a deeper appreciation for who this soul was, this person that was looking to find a way really to be validated and to have self-worth, but also had this ability to inspire and entertain, right? It must have been fascinating for you. You wrote to him, he writes back, and then to take a deeper dive into his life to find out all the things that you did.
That's right. Yeah, it was an interesting process because I thought it would take a year, and it took 3. And the depth to which John had gone in his life really surprised me. I mean, we talked about it. I knew that he'd had a difficult childhood. I mean, he always described it as turbulent. That was his favorite word, but that doesn't really do it justice. And until this book came out, nobody realized that John was a survivor of child sexual abuse, or that he was confused about his sexuality as a result. And he struggled with a lot of things, which, for somebody who was born in 1942, so he's in the silent generation, these things were not talked about at all. And yet he was open about trying to get rid of the stigma behind being an addict. Because of these stuttering, he expressed himself through piano. So he went into the jazz world and became a very, very good jazz piano player. But unfortunately, like a lot of jazz musicians, he got the same occupational hazards, which he fell into heroin and cocaine. And he was not only just a drug addict, but also a dealer, which surprised me. So he'd really, by the time he became Scatman and got sober, he had really turned his life around. And I was constantly surprised that the man I knew so well as this huge pop figure, that, you know, the background he had come from, it was just shocking. And he should have died like 10 times over with what he was going through, and the way he just took everything that was possible to take, drug wise. I think he overdosed once on his heroin dealer's floor, and his dealer had to resuscitate him. I mean, how do you come back from that? But he did it. And I think when I started writing the book, I didn't want to sanitize his life, because, hey, we're in 2026, we can talk about these things, they should be talked about. And I thought it would be doing John a disservice if I you know, sanitized or made him a saint, or didn't put all the so-called bad things in the book. So yeah, it was an interesting process for sure.
How did you know where to begin? How did you know, and what was it like getting all the research? Did you talk to his family, his friends, people in the music industry? That must have been a real in-depth. I mean, you have a journalistic background, you're a writer, you worked with the BBC, you've got the understanding of how to approach a story, how to tell it effectively. But what was that process like, even just gathering the facts and creating the storyline?
I had a pretty good head start because I knew John, of course, and I ran his website as well for years in the 90s. So I wasn't exactly a stranger to his record label, to his family, and to people who knew him. So when I began to tell people, hey, listen, I'm thinking about writing his biography, on the whole, they were hugely supportive. I can't think of anybody who wasn't supportive and cooperative. I think because they knew instinctively that as a fellow stutterer, I would certainly be able to approach that in a way that was sensitive. But not only that, but all the other aspects of his life. And of course, I'm a fan of his music as well, and I like to put that front and center, not just his Scatman era, but also the jazz music. But I had to go and find everybody who possibly knew him. And if John was still alive, he would be in his 80s now. So a lot of the people, one of my greatest fears actually was that a lot of the people who knew him were gone. And, you know, jazz musicians don't tend to have a lot of longevity if they got into drugs. And so I was trying to find all these people. And his widow, Judy, passed away in 2023, around the time I decided to start the book. And that was a big trigger, because I thought, you know what, if I don't get this down on paper, this amazing story is going to be lost forever. And so I just thought, I've got to get all these first person accounts. I have to do it. And yeah, that's why it probably took a lot longer than I thought, but I wanted to do a proper job and do John justice as well.
You know, your background is extensive too, as I mentioned, writer, editor, former TV professional, background spanning broadcasting, journalism, and also disability advocacy, which I think is fantastic. And you're active in several nonprofits serving the global stuttering community and its allies as well. So this is something that's really near and dear to your heart, isn't it, Gina?
That's right. When I said that, when I first wrote to John and he wrote back to me, it wasn't just a polite response to fan mail. I think he saw it for what it was, which is a cry for help. And he didn't just say, nice to hear from you, thanks for your letter. He was like, I'm gonna help you. And what you need to do is you need to get around other people who stutter, join the community, get some self-help first. And so he pointed me to what was then called the British Stammering Association. We call stuttering stammering in the UK. It's the same thing. And so I did, and I was amazed to find this hugely supportive worldwide global community. Stutterers are about 1% of the population, and for the longest time I was hiding mine. As you can hear, it's not very prevalent, but it's there, and it used to bother me a huge deal, and I was hiding it, and that's what covert stuttering is, where you pass as fluent. But as soon as I got into the community, that changed my life. It saved my life, and I have John to thank for that. And so I'm still active even now in many stuttering organizations worldwide.
That's fantastic. That is really great. And again, you have that journalistic background as well, which aided in the preparation of this extraordinary book. As I mentioned, his stutter, coupled with the abuse and the deep shame and anxiety that he had, where he self-medicated himself and got involved in the world of drugs and drinking, was something that he was always working through, right? Always something that he made, a priority to try to get through in his life.
That's right. Yeah, John was had a very prevalent stutter. He couldn't hide it like I could, so he had no choice but to go out there and speak to people. And as many stutterers will know, it's not even now today. It's not the most well understood speech difference or disability. It's still mocked in the media, sadly, sometimes, and people give us all sorts of advice, like, slow down, take a breath, think about what you're going to say before you say it. It's like, yep, we do. It's a neurological difference, and for the longest time, and especially in John's lifetime, it was seen to be a psychological issue. Like, you could just try harder and get through it, but no, John decided instead to express himself through the piano. And like I said, he could scat sing because he took the freezing and the phrasing of his stutter and turned it into music instead, which he was an incredible scat singer, up there with the best jazz greats, I would say, like Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong, Cab Calloway, all these people. And he took that and yet put it into modern pop. And a lot of people hadn't heard that before. It was unique at the time, and still is now. You don't really hear it. So, yeah, interesting how he had to alchemize the stutter into something positive. And one of the things he used to love saying is that I have turned, my greatest problem in my life, I've turned it into my greatest asset. And it was true. It was true. He really did.
Do you think because he had the stutter that it might have helped with the ability to scat, that there might have been a way to pull from the ability to have the stuttering built within, pull from elements of that might actually have been beneficial to scatting?
Yeah, absolutely. He used to demonstrate how he could turn a stuttering block into a scat sing, and he did say many times that the phrasing and the syllables of when you're stuttering, he could just grab that and turn it into firing syllables out like scat singing. So he said they're both really close. And in his most famous song, he does say the stutter and the scat is the same thing. So he really made a thing of it, and it was his. He was a talented scat singer. And I've talked to other jazz musicians when I was interviewing for the book, and they confirm you can't just go shooby dooby dooby, and it will come out all right. You need to know about the harmonies and the scales and how it comes in and comes out, and it's actually an incredibly technical vocal technique, which I didn't know about. I just thought you could just go ba ba da ba da. Yeah, I can't do it. So right, please don't ask me to do
exactly.
it.
Right. It's really something very, very special and an amazing ability to have, which he plugged into and was able to, bring it to the forefront in the world of music, and wasn't doing it at the age of 19. He was already, in a middle-aged time, right?
That's right. Yeah. Like I mentioned, John was an addict for many, many years until his mid 40s, but he got sober and stayed sober. And after that, he was playing as like a jazz lounge piano player in Europe. He'd moved to Europe because there's a bigger jazz scene there. And you know, these piano players who play in the background of like a cocktail hour in 5-star hotels and things like that. He was doing that kind of work in Europe, nothing too incredible or remarkable. And the owner of his agency called Manfred Zaringer, he also had a record label, and he came up with the idea one day that, hey, you know, this scat singing, let's look at the 90s charts. It's like got a lot of novelties. It's got a lot of house music, you would call it in the States, or dance music. And it was dominating the chart at the time. And so Manfred said, hey, why don't we take your scat singing, throw it under a dance beat, and let's try and make a song out of it. And by this time, John is 52. So it's not the right age for a pop star. I mean, you know, the charts were full of 18 and 19-year-olds. And Manfred thought that John would almost certainly say no as an absolute jazz purist. He's like, what? Electronic music? There's no real instruments. What is this? What is this genre? But he had nothing to lose. And so he just said, okay, I'll give it a go. And I think that nobody really thought that it would become a hit at all. And then to everybody's surprise, it becomes a massive hit, like #1 in a dozen countries. And when the music video came out, that it just was unstoppable by then, because they were like, this sound is coming out of this guy's mouth. Right. A lot of people thought he was a young black guy, me included, when I first heard it. And even now online, people are like, I didn't know Scatman John looked like my math teacher or a professor. And they actually hid him from the first singles cover. He was on them after the first one, but they hid him because they thought, you know, ageism in the pop industry in the 90s was huge. And you've got this balding 52-year-old jazz guy in a suit in a black and white video, and it's like, what do we do? But when people saw him, they just loved it. And it was on MTV dozens of times a day back then, and everywhere, because of the shock value of how he looked as well. But he was so sort of joyful and open with it, and, you know, talking and singing about stuttering as well, which is altogether hugely unusual. That's why the subtitle of the book is like the remarkable story of the world's unlikeliest pop star. He was an unlikely pop star. It should not have worked, but it did.
It's incredible too, because again, millions and millions of people around the world took to him, and all of these you know, albums sold. Incredible. And he's still, you know, the music's still available. It still is very popular, still sells, because the uniqueness of his story, but the uniqueness of him and his voice and what he was able to do with it. He became, he was a standout in many ways, with the voice, the look, the story, the whole thing. He didn't necessarily blend in like a lot of people do. Everybody sounds the same sometimes, and it's all tweaked through technology and all this. He was the real deal, right? Hard on his sleeve.
He was, yeah. And the reason I think it's lasted so long, just to put it in perspective, at the time in the 90s, in 1995, he was the biggest selling male artist in Europe. Michael Jackson was second. And he loved that. He received a fax confirming it, and he framed it and put it on his wall.
Can you imagine
but
that?
In Japan, yeah, I know. It's like, I beat Michael Jackson, yeah. And in Japan, even now, today, when you look at the top 10 foreign artists who have an album in Japan, he's still one of the top 10 of all time. And he's been dead like 26 years. And so he's there, sandwiched between the Beatles and the Eagles, even now, as a big seller. I mean, he still outsells Taylor Swift in Japan, even though he's dead. So it was incredible. And now, like you said, the popularity continues. I mean, recently artists like the Black Eyed Peas have sampled him, Jason Derulo, Alan Walker. All these people love to incorporate Scatman into their songs now, because it's still unique and still really different, and you can tell instantly that it's him. There's certainly no sound alike for Scatman John.
Not at all. And it was a chance meeting, actually, with a music producer that sort of opened the door to his worldwide best-selling album, right? It just sort of came into being for him in that way.
That's right. Yeah, I mentioned the owner of his agency who was booking him into like cruise ships and hotels, because that's the kind of piano playing he was doing. He wasn't even singing very much. But it was a tiny independent label called Iceberg, and they're based out of Denmark. And they took the risk. The owners, Manfred and Mette, took a risk and said, you know what, this just might work. And so what was initially thought to be a novelty song, because after the first humongous hit, usually with these kinds of dance music in the 90s, they kind of arrived and then disappeared again, you know, like the Macarena or Eiffel 65's Blue and a bunch of others that I can think of. But no, John is sometimes seen to be a one-hit wonder because he had that massive hit, but the follow-up did just as well. That was #1 in several countries, and the album, his first album, as I just mentioned, is still one of the best-selling of all time in Japan. And I think that's incredible now, considering, you know, he hasn't put new music out because he can't. He died in 1999, but we're slowly uncovering recordings that were found during the book research process. So I'm glad to say some of his jazz music is coming out. Some of the unreleased Scatman stuff might come out, and I think, unlike a lot of artists, he's aged really well, because he was talking about things back then that are now, you know, good to talk about being yourself, not being afraid to be different, and just, you know, being good to yourself and to other people. It sounds really cheesy, but I mean, the world needs it right now more than ever, I think.
It's also when he moved to Germany, he changed the performance name to Scatman John, turning his style into, like you say, something more electro, Euro, dancey, yet still in use of his Louis Armstrong-like rap. And he dropped that first single, the one you're talking about, Scatman, Ski-Ba-Bop-Ba-Dop-Bop.
Yeah, well
Your
done.
turn. Your turn. Yeah,
Ski-Ba-Bop-Ba-Dop-Bop. Something like that. Yeah.
I like the way you say it with the accent, the British accent. Dubop.
Yes, it's very polite.
It's very polite way. And in '94, he racked up pop music sales of over 2.5 million copies worldwide, 14 gold and 18 platinum albums and singles before passing away at his home in California in 1999. I want to say that again, folks. 14 gold and 18 platinum albums and singles. That's incredible. Some people hope for just one of those.
Right, I know, it was just an incredible run. And this of course was in the days when you had to go out and buy a CD. There's no streaming, so this is people buying the cassette even as well, cassette or CD or vinyl, and racking up. I think he in the end got close to something like 9 million sales across Europe as well. But now it's gone on to streaming platforms. Like I said, his first big hit is now over 300 million on Spotify. It's approaching the same on YouTube. And in total, if you total it up, it's well over 1 billion. And we calculated recently that the songs are so popular that every second of every minute of every day, someone is playing a Scatman John song. It's just constantly playing somewhere, which is amazing to think about.
It's amazing, right? People, like you said, might not recognize the face visually as they do hearing him, because it was such a standout. And that Scatman's World LP, the concept album, also advocating for love and acceptance, right? It made John Larkin, John, a worldwide celebrity, but also an advocate for stuttering acceptance. So there, as much as it got the wonderful, adulation and people were playing it and dancing to it and enjoying it and having fun with it, there was a message underneath that still stays true today, right?
That's right. The album actually opened with a very short spoken word piece where John just says, "Imagine a land of love where people have time to care," and it goes on like that. And so he decided that, okay, I have a platform, and who listens to this kind of music? It's kids, troubled teenagers, those with something different about them. Maybe they don't feel good about themselves. And he decided, instead of, like, dance music was normally full of kind of simple lyrics designed to be repeated on dance floors. They're all about sex and partying and stuff like that. But John, who's 52, older, decides that, okay, I have the ears of children, so I'm going to give them positive, affirming stuff in my lyrics. So all of his songs were about either social issues or about feelings, which was, I know this is quite common now, but it was uncommon then. And so he covered things like inequality, racism, homelessness, and all this. And in the liner notes, he dedicated the first album to, I think, to all who have problems. He said, living in a confused world, which includes those of us who stutter. So he wasn't saying it was just for people who stutter, although that was his main thing. It was anybody who felt that they were an outsider or something different, or who felt bad about themselves. And he was absolutely sincere with it. At the time, it was dismissed sometimes by, like, the music press as being, a bit cheesy, and but he didn't care. He said, I don't care if I sound naive. Kids need to hear this, and I'm going to tell it to them. And he did. And I think that's also part of why he's still so popular today. To do a concept album about self-esteem is just like,
Right.
It's still unusual.
And it's the kind of thing that is so needed and so important. And who would have loved it, and I wonder if he even knew of it, would be somebody like a Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and that kind of Sesame Street, those kinds of shows, especially for kids, even though adults enjoyed it and still enjoy it now, the fact that it reaches all these different cultures and backgrounds, like you mentioned, Japan and Europe and Asia, and of course here in North America, but and South America, but it just is. He reached everybody. He touched the lives of all these different backgrounds and ages, and no specific demographic, which is really absolutely amazing. And somebody like you, when you were younger, somebody may see you here, on our show and say, but she's so poised and she's so elegant, and she sounds fantastic, looks great, must be, she must have had a great background herself. Even you've been very open. You went through bullying and you were unsure and sort of a teenage stammerer or stutterer. And when you had met Scatman John, somebody that you wrote to and he wrote back, and you actually credit him for saving your life and the lives of many who are stutterers, who have felt hopeless and alone, not just when that song and all of that music came out, but even to this day, right? Tell us about that and the depth of not only enjoying this person as a talent for you, but how he basically, from your perspective, saved your life in many respects.
That's right. Yeah, I mentioned I wrote to him, and I only recently found out during the book research that he had come off stage in Frankfurt, Germany, playing in front of 300,000 people, and then he went back to his hotel and he replied to my email. It was the early days of the internet, and I'd found his email address. And like I said, that was almost, he recognized it as for what it was, which was a cry for help. I was in a very dark place. I didn't think I could carry on. I was, I had suicide ideation. I was depressed. I was isolated. I was hiding my stuttering, just not good at all. And at the, not thinking I could carry on. And so he goes back to his hotel and he answers my email in a way that isn't, like I said, it wasn't surface level stuff. He said, I'm going to help you. You need to get in touch with the community. And then a few days later, I think it was, we were both online at the same time. And this was in the days of AOL Messenger, one of the instant chat programs. And I spent like 2 hours talking to him, and he took the time. And back then, of course, nobody worried about who you were talking to on the internet. But thankfully, luckily for me, he was who he said he was, and he was absolutely genuine and sincere and wonderful and helpful and open, and validated some feelings I'd been having that no one had validated before. Because he said, I've been there, I know what it's like. But the incredible thing about John is that it was not just me that he did this for. Any fans who wrote to him, he would try and write back, and it became a thing. And he was trying to answer fan mail like in between concerts. His wife told me he once went to collect his mail from his PO box, and he hadn't predicted the sheer amount of letters he would get from other kids who were feeling the same. And she found him close to tears, sitting among all this fan mail, because he was trying to answer it all. And she said, no one expects you to answer it all, John. It's okay. But he looked at her and said, what if there's another me? And I think that's very telling about his attitude towards fame and caring for people like he cared for me. So we kept up a correspondence for years. He took me through a lot of difficult things in my life as a teenager. And yeah, I credit him with, everything may look a lot better today. I still have these feelings of inferiority, mostly because I'm trying to be more open about my stuttering, and people aren't always as understanding about it. But yeah, he I don't know what I would have done if my favorite pop star had not intervened in my life, which sounds absolutely ridiculous, but it's true. And yeah, he after a couple of years, I heard he got sick because he was sober, but I think his past addictions had caught up with him. He was never a particularly healthy man, even when he was at the height of his fame. He was sneaking oxygen backstage, again, just running himself ragged, trying to get his message out to people. And I just started university, and I was in my first week. I was feeling anxious, back to hiding the stuttering because it's a fast talking, I've got to make friends kind of stressful atmosphere. And I called him, and his wife told me that I knew he had cancer, but she told me it was terminal. And I was in my first week at college, and my student loan had just landed in my bank account, and I just blew the whole lot on a plane ticket to LA to go see him.
To see him.
Before he passed. And she said, he's slipping, he's not recognizing people. Don't be disappointed if he doesn't recognize you. Because John and I had not met in person, of course. We'd phoned each other a lot, we'd emailed, we'd chatted, but he was in LA, I was in the UK. So I buy this ticket and I flew to his house in LA. And I walked through the door, and the minute he saw me, he was like, oh my God, it's you. And we had such an emotional, I'm trying not to get emotional now. I get emotional every time I talk about John. We had 4 days together where mostly I was just sitting, holding his hand, just being there for him, like he was there for me. And that was really, even though that was 26 years ago, it planted the seed where I knew I owed John everything, and to be able to pay him back now by preserving his story for the next generation is a great honor. And yeah, it's like I said, I still get emotional talking about him because
Sure, yeah.
it means
that
a lot to
much.
me and to other people.
You know, sometimes these things happen, and I could only imagine how he felt. Here, you know, we're expressing and sharing how you felt, but I can only imagine the depth of what he felt knowing somebody like yourself overseas in Europe not only fell in love with his sound and his personality and his way and his message, but the depth of who the man was. Did he get a chance over time to express to you how he felt about you and how he was bowled over by your reaction to him and the depth of how you felt about this human being who went through a lot of things in his life and then found his way to the best of his ability with all the trappings of, you know, the music industry and Hollywood and the glitz and the glamour and all these things, still made a big mark that is revered to this day. Did he express to you his gratitude, his shock and awe about it all? Here you are, you know, enamored by his story, and you're telling it so beautifully. But I wonder how he felt. Did you know how he felt? Did he express it to you? Long-winded way of asking that, but I would imagine he did, huh?
He did, and that happened when he got sick. He was ill for like 2 years almost before he passed, but when he first realized there was something wrong, he didn't know what was wrong. He wasn't diagnosed with the cancer until very close to before he died. But the first thing he said to me is, I've had the very best life. Whatever God wants is fine by me. I've tasted beauty. And he was being a bit mystical about it, and I didn't really understand what he was saying then. But then he wrote me an email when I think this was after he got his diagnosis, and he said, to watch how far you've come is a miracle, and we'll both be here for the rest of our lives. So let us never say goodbye, but only to be continued. And I didn't know what he meant then. I knew then there was something wrong, and that's when I was trying to call him a lot. But the most wonderful thing is when I was there in person, we were just sitting quietly together. Some of his jazz buddies had come by, and when they walked in the door, he introduced me and he said, "This girl loves me 100,000% for saving her life." And he was right, and he knew it. And I'm so grateful that he was, you know, I caught him on that lucid day when he was able to express that. And I know that he felt that way about fame. He was mostly strangely untouched by fame. He wasn't bothered about the money or the kudos or any of that, or the sales numbers even. He wasn't that bothered. What he was bothered about was reaching people so that nobody would have to go through what he went through. And so the most meaningful thing to him, which he expressed several times, was that he was able to help kids. And when he said kids, he used to say kids of all ages, that specific phrase, because he was referring to all of us who carry, you know, an inner child around that maybe is wounded or, you know, damaged in some way. And he acknowledged that all of us really feel like that kid inside, and he was aiming everything at that kid, whether you were 8 or 80. And he said that was the most beautiful thing about being famous, was his ability to reach people. And the Mr. Rogers comparison is interesting. I have heard people refer to him as like the Mr. Rogers of music. So yeah, you're not far off with that.
And it's amazing how he was able to touch upon the, you know, the jazz world and other jazz artists that he got a chance to play with and be around. really respected his talent as well over the years too, right? So it was almost like spiritual in a certain way.
Yeah, he never really changed once he became Scatman from the jazz years. Even yes, okay, he was taking drugs and drinking and so on, but all the people who ever played with him said, he was a deeply spiritual man, and seemed very connected with the universe and really in touch with this spiritual side of music. And a lot of people who heard him play or still hear him play now, because some of his older jazz music has kind of surfaced online, just say how brilliant he was as a piano player, and how talented. I mean, you listen to the speed at which he could play. He played piano like he sang. He could do it fast, and with such great energy and passion. And the wonderful thing about when I did all the book interviews is I was fully expecting someone out of over 100 of them. I thought someone's going to say, he was a jerk or whatever, or tell me something bad about him. It's the never. I met my hero, and it wasn't disappointing. But when you get to know about somebody in such great detail and ask a bunch of people who knew them, but there was not a single one. It was really surprising. I mean, as a journalist, I was fully expecting to get the bad with the good, but not with John. All the jazz guys, all the Eurodance guys, just were super loving and wonderful and complimentary about him and his playing as well. And I think he does deserve more than being known as just a mid-90s so-called novelty artist. I mean, he was a brilliant avant-garde jazz musician and a very talented one. And I'm not just saying that because I mean, I'm not a jazz expert. I don't know where he sits on the continuum, but I am told repeatedly that his playing is up there.
It is incredible. I know I've been always aware of him, and I've always found him fascinating as well. So that's why I wanted to have you on the show, because I think the fact that you took this individual who we knew from the periphery, what we saw and heard, and sort of being in these related industries like you as well, maybe knew a little bit more than the average, but you took this total time period to take this really loving deep dive into him with this, what is actually an authorized biography on him, that's important too for people to realize, and did it in a way that really just captures him. It's like a redemptive, deeply human story of the struggle and the heartbreak, the triumph. And for anyone who's ever felt like an outsider, who's needed that lift, needed to feel plugged in, connected, valued, appreciated, your work of art, this book celebrating his life, also inspires with this powerful message that your deepest fear can become your greatest strength, and your pain can become your purpose. That is incredible. Did you have an idea? Was that part of what your hope was as you were celebrating this talent, this incredible person musically, that also the book would reach people who are going through things themselves and who feel like they are the outsiders? Did you, and I imagine in terms of feedback, you're probably hearing from a lot of people who, there's the Scatman John fans, but then there's also this other group of people who maybe didn't even know about him, but read the book and they feel this whole wash of, wow, boy, maybe I can pursue something that I have as a dream, and I can believe in myself. There's like a double thing going on here with this incredible book, Gina.
Yes, thank you. That was one of the primary purposes of me writing it, is that you don't actually need to have heard about Scatman John himself or even like that kind of music to understand the human story and to have it resonate with you. And the book's not been out very long, but I've already had some incredible emails and messages from people I don't know who are not Scatman fans saying, you know what, I feel seen for the first time because of I really relate to John's experiences, and that's incredible to me. And I joke that my agent and my editor will probably kill me for saying this, but it isn't about book sales or any of that stuff. It's about, you know what, if you just want to read a story about somebody who went down to the darkest depths and then bounced, and somehow, you know, if it was fiction, they'd probably say this is too ridiculous. But it's true, and it's amazing. And I hope that John's message and his story and his attitude continues through people learning about him. I think his story is going to reach its people, I like to say, and it will reach the right people, I hope. And yeah, it isn't necessarily about pop music even, or jazz or any of that. It is about one man who accepted himself as he was eventually in life, and then took that and made it into something wonderfully positive, and wanted to spread the message.
Do you see another book in the offing? Are there other people who are fascinating to Gina, and this might be the start of something fantastic?
I've thought about that, but this one this one took so much out of me. I haven't had a chance to think about another one. I enjoyed the process. It was sometimes very difficult as well. But let's see how this one does first. I'd say I've not got any plans yet. It's been a bit of a whirlwind.
Now you're doing a lot of travel. Like, again, you're from England, and here you are. You've been in New York. Now you're in Los Angeles, and so you're doing a lot of traveling here, there, and everywhere, right? To celebrate the book events and signings and different things, right? It's all part of the process.
That's right. Yeah, we launched in New York about a month ago, and I've just come to LA to do the same thing. And next I'll be going home to London. So there's that. But yeah, it's been a whirlwind. And interestingly, the publisher decided to publish in the US first because John was American. But he's not that known in America. And interestingly, my editor had never heard of Scatman John, but he decided to, take a gamble on this because of the strength of the story about this Californian man who did so much for the world, and yet people in the States don't necessarily know that much about him unless they've come across him online. So it's also a case of, hey, America, this guy, he's one of yours, and he was one of the best human beings ever. You should know who he is.
And he was on MTV in the heyday too. Yeah.
He was best male artist nomination. I think there's like Dr. Dre, Michael Jackson, Neil Young, and Scatman.
And Scatman John.
I know. It's like
he was probably pinching himself, so blown away by it all too, just soaking it all out. Like, wow. I mean, I've arrived. I'm amongst all of these other incredibly well-known, well-heeled performers and celebrities and talents, and here I come along, and people have embraced my music and my story, which is validation in a way for a lot of things in his life. The other thing too that I think is great is some of the approaches towards stuttering that have evolved in the past, say, decades. Science now seeing it as a form of neurodiversity, discovering DNA markers that can actually help with crucial early intervention, right? Tell us about that. That's exciting in terms of those who are dealing with stuttering or stammering.
Yeah, for a long time, as I mentioned earlier, stuttering has been broadly misunderstood, and it wasn't until quite recently that it was recognized as it's a difference in brain wiring. So it's neurological, it's it's involuntary, and it's not something that we have any control over necessarily. And previously this, it would cause people like John a lot of problems when they were just told, you can try harder, you can speak if you try, or why don't you sing when you're speaking, because a lot of us don't stutter when we sing. So he sometimes sang things to get it out, but that's not a way to live your life, you know. It's like, who wants to sound like that? But recently, yeah, we've come a long way, both in speech and language therapy for stuttering, but also the other element which wasn't always addressed, which is how you feel about it. You know, some people have really heavy stutters and they just don't care, and they go about their lives perfectly fine. And then there's people like me who have a very kind of mild stutter, but I let it sabotage my life completely. I avoided, you know, opportunities, friendships, social situations. You'd never get me on the phone. I'm still not a fan of it. And so I let it, and I look back and think, why did I let it sabotage my life? So therapy now is very much to do with the individual. It's like what you want. If you just want to stutter more easily, that's fine, because sometimes there's a lot of stress and tension when we're speaking, and you can work on that. You can use certain techniques that may help you be more fluent, but there is no cure. And it's important to say that there is no universal cure for stuttering. It's just something that you can address the outside bit, the speech itself, but you must also address the inside as well. And I think that's been recognized more and more in speech therapy.
That's really incredible. It is. Did Scatman John ever try to get you to sing and perform?
He didn't try and get me to sing, because I can't sing very well. But I once asked him to teach me his follow-up single, Scatman's World, I bought a keyboard, right? And I made the mistake of asking John to teach me I was like, so this, you know, what's this chord line? And he just went straight into this technical, oh, it's a descending bass scale, and you do this, and then you move to this chord. And I was like, man, you've lost me. I don't know what you're talking about. But he was so excited that I wanted to try. And I'd heard a lot that if anybody picked up an instrument in front of him, he would adjust his playing so he could play with you. He was, you know, he wasn't a music snob. He would just accept anybody at any level and play with them, just for the joy of it. And yeah, that's another, you know, indication of the kind of guy he was.
What's one thing that you learned about him that might have surprised you, and one thing you learned about yourself along the way that surprised you about yourself as well, Gina?
Interesting questions, Jim. Yeah, I alluded to it at the beginning, but the thing that surprised me most about John is that, you know, he had kind of glossed over his childhood, really, and called it turbulent, but it was deeply, deeply traumatic. So the thing that surprised me about him was how much he had been through, and how much he'd had to work on himself to come out of that and still be this wonderful, positive, sincere person at the end of it. But there's something about people who've hit rock bottom like that. I'm drawn to those kinds of people because they're real. You know, he was authentic. He was himself. There's no BS about John. He was out there. And so that's the most surprising thing about him, is that I knew vaguely what past he'd come from, but the actual details were quite shocking. And you asked about whether I found out anything about myself. I realized as I was writing the book that I had not truly addressed what was going on in my childhood, and I had not wanted to revisit it. And I thought I would just, you know, of course I knew him, so I have to write about that. But it really floored me how I had to go inside myself to get this book done and to get it out, because it's obviously deeply personal to me, but also just to process the feelings I had about my own shame and my own stuttering. So in a way, it was like therapy writing this for me. I didn't expect that at all. people say it's very, it's very difficult writing a book, and they said, "Oh, Gina, the research is the fun part." And I was like, yeah, it was. The writing was the hard part, but I had to really dig down and address things myself, which was a surprise to me.
Exactly. And the better for it too. Your lives were enriched knowing each other for the length of time that you did, you and John. And that's a beautiful thing. And you are here to tell and share the story of this extraordinary life. Cut short, could have been here a lot longer, but the mark he made during his years are amazing and very inspiring. And all the music is out there for everybody again to grab, because you can go on again all the major platforms, and his music is selling and selling and selling, and it's being introduced to new audiences who are hearing him for the very first time and saying, "Whoa, what is this? This is a great sound. This is unique." He had this personality about him. He had this resilience, which this story really touches upon, and you've documented so much of it in your glowing and beautiful book. The book available at Amazon, right?
Yeah, and most bookshops as well.
As well, and the publisher, you said they are. Is it Bloomsbury?
It's Bloomsbury, yeah. Big
Yeah.
publisher, best known for the Harry Potter series, I think. And
Right.
yeah, they decided that this was going to be one of
cool.
theirs. So that's
Wow.
yeah, I'm really pleased about that.
He was right there with Michael Jackson, and you were right there with Harry Potter. I mean, wow.
No.
How cool is this, huh?
I know, yeah. It's like, well, it's a great story, and I hope more people find it.
Absolutely. What is the one thing that you really hope they're left with after they do read it?
I would say, John thought the world was in chaos in the 90s, but I often wonder what he would make of it now. And especially now, I know that things are talked about more, but if you just want a lift, if you want to read something that is the most incredible, positive and yet bittersweet story that is true and real, and an example of how an act of kindness can ripple out and touch people, I would say give it a go. Listen to John's music, read his story, connect with him, because there's a whole bunch of us who have found him, and at the moment he's like a slightly underground figure, but once people find John, they tend to think, oh my goodness, and stick around and share it and enjoy it, and it's a wonderful community to be in. And so I would say, welcome into Scatman's world. You'd be very welcome.
Scatman's world, exactly. And thank you so much, Gina, for coming into our world here at the Jim Masters Show. There's a phrase that was developed by accident. You'll appreciate this for anybody who doesn't know it. A lot of our viewers already know. And it was when I started the show almost 6 years ago now and counting. And I said during that time we were going through the pandemic. So I said the show has a lot of light, love, and levity. And when I said that one time, like I've said it a million times on the show, I said it a little too fast. I said, yeah, our show has a lot of light, levity, combining love and levity together. And out came this word levity. So the audience fell in love with that word. They said, wow, what did you just say, Jim Masters? I said, I guess I said the show is light, levity, love and levity together. Said, we love that word. Guess what? You're now Mr. Levity. This is Levity Hall. We are your Levity squad, and the guests are part of the Levity family. So guess what, Gina? You are now part of the Jim Masters Show Levity family. How cool is that, huh?
That is extremely cool. It's a pleasure to come and be in the Levity. Would you say Levity Hall? That's cool.
Yeah,
I like that. That could be in England,
I was going to say, it does have a British sort of.
You want to be Lord Levity? Yeah.
Lord, yeah. Yes. Lord Levity, Masters, right? It would be Masters. Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
And the families, my father's side with the English side and yours hail from the Yorkshire area, right? Yorkshire.
that's right. Yeah, northwest England, Yorkshire.
I always
Yeah,
wondered why I had a craving for pudding. Now I know why.
that's funny. Yeah, I can't make them. My grandma was like, "What's wrong with you? I can't
Why
make
can't you
pudding."
make the pudding?
Say,
You
yeah,
you
why
still have
can't you?
why can't you? You still have your mug there? Let's say cheers and
Cheers.
congratulations on the book. I have the I Dream of
Yeah,
Jeannie mug.
I have
There
a
you
very
go.
plain. Cheers. Thank you for having me, Jim.
Oh,
It's
the
been a
pleasure
pleasure.
is all mine. Keep in touch. Come see us again. And I hope you, congratulations on the book again. Go to, wherever books are sold. And again, it's Scatman John. It's the remarkable story of the world's unlikeliest pop star and true to form. And thanks for sharing your story and being so real and authentic and open and caring as well. It's I'm sure a lot of people watching this who are inspired now from hearing your words as well and your appreciation not only of Scatman, but also sharing your story so it inspires others who are watching around the world who may be going through something similar as well. And they don't know where to reach out, and they're in the bubble, and they see you and your success. They hear about Scatman Johns, and they say, maybe I can do this too, whatever it is they want to do in life. So a real pleasure, and hope you enjoyed the time with me as much as I have with you, Gina. It was a pleasure.
I I did. Thank you, Jim. You've been a great host. Thank you very much.
I appreciate that. Spread that around the world as you travel.
I will. I will.
You be well. Congratulations, and come join us again. Safe travels, okay?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I will. Thank you.
All right. You take care. Cheers.
Take care.
Gina Waggott, not only a brilliant journalist and author, but author of this incredible book that we've been talking about. This is really something that you got to add to your collection, folks. What a great story. Maybe you, knew a little bit about him. Maybe you've heard the music. Maybe this is triggering a memory of, wow, I never knew the story. I remember those songs. I remember that particular hit. I remember him. But you didn't know about who the man was, right? Scatman John. This is by Gina Waggott, brilliant journalist, writer, editor. She had worked for the BBC. She's writing all the time. This is the remarkable story of the world's unlikeliest pop star, the one and only Scatman John, John Larkin, who's originally from California, USA, but was beloved around the world. And the book, there it is one more time. You can get it at Amazon and where books, Barnes & Noble, where books are sold. We thank Gina for joining us here on the show. What a delight. What a pleasure. Always love a good British accent, as we all do here in America, right? Thanks for being with us, everybody. If you enjoyed this episode, well, don't forget, you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook and X, formerly Twitter, at Jim Masters TV, and give this episode a thumbs up like. We love the comments too. That means the world to us when you drop a comment below. Click like on our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. Share this episode with somebody you think will really enjoy it. Share it on your social media. Drop a comment below. Do you have a similar story to what we just shared? Maybe you've dealt with stuttering or something else, and maybe this episode inspired you or somebody that you know and care about, or maybe just learning more about somebody like the iconic Scatman John, John Larkin, here on our show. We thank you for being with us, coming to you here from America. This is Jim Masters. Don't go anywhere. Another great episode of our entertainment lifestyle celebrity talk show series comes up in just a moment. Till then, for all of us, thanking you for your time this time. Till next time, we'll keep that porch light on for you. Come back and join us again right here on the Jim Masters Show. We really appreciate all the comments, all the love, all the continued support. Don't forget, you can binge watch all of our past episodes too. They're all right here for you. So go back and check out some of the episodes. There's hundreds of them with celebrity guests and friends just for you. Be well for all of us. Thanks for being with us on this episode, and we'll see you again next time on the Jim Masters Show. Come join us soon.